picture of my dog. Well, oh, thank you, appreciate it. His name was, because he's deceased now, but his name is Dog. D-A-W-G. Because we could never agree on what to name it. He just showed up one day, adopted our family, and became a really awesome part of God. It was a blessing from God. Now that image right there is his favorite room in the whole house was our washroom. On frigid, cold night. Now he loved to come in. He had a spot outside the back door. Okay, we had a mega-sized, one of those industrial-sized dog houses. We went all out, got him a nice one. Had to keep him on a 40-foot, sometimes 50-foot cable because he would chase 18-wheelers down the street into downtown Benton. So I didn't want him to get hit by an 18-wheeler or get run over by a car. And so we had to kind of keep him on that. But otherwise, I mean, he loved living around us and enjoyed his life immensely. But he loved to come inside. He didn't just barge in. I mean, he would wait till we opened the door and invited him in, but he would come in. Well, on frigid, cold nights, when it was going to be below freezing, I would open the back door of the washroom. He'd be out, because this house looked at the window of our kitchen. He could see us when we were eating supper. It was at the back door, so he still felt a part of the family, even though he's an outside dog, because you can't really tell it, but that dog's 200 pounds. Okay? And that's my other favorite picture for obvious reasons as well. That was my daughter when she was quite young. But anyway, so he loved our family, and he would, did I say he liked to come in the house? Because he did. So on frigid cold nights, I'd open the door and let that cold air come in, so I didn't want him to get warmed up and then cooled off too fast and then it make him sick. So the washroom was already cold, so I let it kind of be a little bit closer to what it was like outside for him. And I would put a big old bed for him on the floor, old towels that I saved for that purpose, some old blankets, even a pillow. One time I was taking my time to kind of get it just right. And he was looking at me, he's outside, he's shivering, but he's shaking his tail. He's just eager. He knows what's about to happen. He's going to get loved on when he comes in. He's going to get a big old Scooby snack, and he's going to get a nice warm bed. And I looked at him and I said, "Dog, you want me to put a mint on your pillow too? I mean, what am I, your hotel, concierge?" And so I finally let him off the leash. I mean, he came in that house, and of course he did his little servant thing, and he got his food. He was happy as a lark. Every now and then I'd open the door to the kitchen and let him go into the rest of the house, and he'd go see the rest of the family. Loved to play with the cats. He was never rough with them. And then after a while, he's ready to come back in. The dog loved to come in the house. Well, tonight I want to continue as we think about temptation. Temptation is like that dog of mine. Big old red dog. I don't know really what type of breed he was. I think he had some lab, I think he had some setter, and I think he had some retriever. All I know, he was 200 pounds. Ask me how I know that sometime, because I would be sitting like right here, okay? And if I'm sitting on my steps, and here comes the dog, in his head, he's still a puppy, and so he wants to climb up in the lap. Well, when you're a 200-pound dog, that is not comfortable when he tries to climb up on you. And I'm like, "Get off of me, dude, seriously." But he loved to come in. Well, when we think about temptation, temptation crouches outside the door of our life, does it not? And that's true for children, it's true for teenagers, and it's true for adults as well. It has its favorite little spot. It lies in crouching and waiting for us to just open the door and say, "Come on in," and it will. Temptation and sin are always at the door, waiting to come in if you let it. The Bible speaks about temptation and sin. Cain and Abel are an example of temptation and sin. Rather, Cain is, not so much Abel. He had a situation where he is upset at God. He's upset with his brother. Cain was instructed how he should please God and was given, in essence, another opportunity to do the right thing. But instead, temptation was outside the door of his heart, waiting to come in. Ready, willing, and able to come in. If you have your Bibles, turn with me to Genesis chapter 4 I'll begin reading with verse 3, I believe. Genesis chapter 4. Yeah. And in the process of time, it came to pass that Cain brought an offering of the fruit of the ground to the Lord. Abel also brought of the firstborn of his flock and of their fat. That is the best part. And the Lord respected Abel and his offering, but he did not respect Cain and his offering. And Cain was very angry. The English doesn't do it justice. He was mad, as in rage mad. And his countenance fell. So the Lord said to Cain, "Why are you so angry? And why has your countenance fallen? If you do well, will you not be accepted? And if you do not do well, sin lies at the door." Actually, that word is crouches at the door. "And its desire is for you, but you should rule over it." As we think about that, I would have you note that being at the door, that is a present problem. Cain is in rage. He's in a rage against God. He's in a rage against his brother Abel. Many Bible teachers say that Cain did not offer to God the correct sacrifice. It was fine to have brought the best of his produce. Yes, that's good. You want to honor God with your best and your first. But Cain, like his brother Abel, is a sinner. That means you have to approach God through that blood sacrifice. All this is looking forward one day to Jesus coming, dying on the cross, shedding his blood for you and me, so that by faith in him and his finished work, and the fact that he rose from the dead and is alive, and one day he's coming back to this world, maybe in our lifetime, maybe not, I don't know, but the Bible says he's coming again. Looking forward to that. So if Cain had brought a blood sacrifice first to take care of the sin issue, then the other probably would have been accepted. But his motive and his methods were not what God had commanded him to do. It is implied, I believe, in this text that Cain knew what to do, because Abel certainly knew what to do, and not just because he's a shepherd of the flock. I believe that there had been an explanation. Sin was a present tense problem for both, but specifically for Cain. And in this case, the temptation is one of anger and jealousy, and it's simmering inside. It's crouching at that door, and it's waiting. I wouldn't jump off, but I'm afraid I would lose my balance and face plant right in front of y'all, which would be okay. I could probably handle it, but since we're live streaming, that's not the image I want to present on cyberspace. But jumping off, crouching, ready to come in. That's exactly what's going on in Cain's life, in Cain's mind. It is a very real presence in his life, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. There is not going away. Sometimes we can ignore things, and sometimes it just kind of seems to go away, does it not? Or you can ignore people. You shouldn't, but you can ignore people, and eventually I get phone calls all the time. These telemarketers all the time. I ignore them. I don't answer the phone. It's amazing. Unavailable is always, calling me. Don't know who unavailable is? Don't care. Okay? So there you have it. Eventually, maybe one day, they will get the message, wow, there's nobody wanting to buy our stuff, so I'm just going to quit calling them. Yeah, right, maybe. But with that said, some things just don't go away. Temptation and the sins that come with temptation, whatever that temptation might be for each and every one of us in this room tonight, it does not go away. You have to deal with it. So let's apply that tonight real quick, okay? Temptation doesn't go away. So what do we do about it? Just wishing it away? For those of you who might remember a Twilight Zone episode years ago, wish it to the cornfield, Jimmy, wish it to the cornfield. It doesn't work that way. You've got to deal with it up front, and you've got to deal with it before it gets bigger. First, you acknowledge it, you name it when you pray over it. Surrender it to God, because that temptation, that desire, that opportunity, that sin, God is bigger than all of that. Give it to God and ask Him to give you the strength to escape it. And then arm yourself. Be aware of what can and what does trigger that temptation. There's some places, maybe Some of you just simply don't need to go and hang out because it's going to tempt you to sin. And what it may be talking trash about somebody. It may be wanting to do stuff you shouldn't be doing. Or, there are some things you have to kind of draw a line and say, this far and no further. Not going to do it. We're going to stand right here, and if need be, you can go the other way, but we're not moving. I remember in high school, I had a couple of friends, I guess with friends like those, I didn't need enemies. I won't go into any unsavory details other than to say that I told them, let me out of the van because I'm not riding with you because of what you're doing. And I'm not going to jail for your stupidity. And so they let me out on the street, and I walked the rest of the way home. Why? Because I'm not going to be a party to that. I'm not going to be part of what it is that you think is so cool when it is five levels of some kind of stupid. But that's a sermon for another time. But yeah, you have to sometimes just get away from those people and those situations that can cause you to be tempted. There are times where you've got to resist it and say, we're just simply not going to allow this. We're just simply not going to get on Facebook and trash somebody. We're not going to text somebody and say things or do things that are inappropriate. We're just simply not going to do it. Even if it means that you just simply delete Facebook, or you simply delete whatever social media that might be tempting you. And I'm not talking to just teenagers, I'm talking to adults too. Trust me, it can be a savage place in the cyber world, and it can be a temptation. Some people share things on cyberspace that they wouldn't dare say to anybody's face. Why? They might get punched in the face, but they'll say it on cyberspace. It can be a temptation because there's not that sense of accountability. But God is watching, and God is listening. And so it may be that you have to just do something radical and say, if that means that I don't go, for example, if I love to read and I go to bookstores, and I guess if I had plenty of time and plenty of money, I would probably fill this whole sanctuary up full of books. Now, the problem is I wouldn't have any place to live, let alone God have any place to worship. So if me going to the bookstore is a temptation to spend money that I don't need to spend, then maybe I just don't need to go to the bookstore for a long while. Or at least, my family intervenes and says, no, you're not getting on Amazon. You're not ordering that. You don't need, but I like it. There you go, that temptation. What temptation and what sin is a clear and present danger or threat in your life tonight? Think about it, name it, take it to the Lord, pray over it, pray through it, ask Him to give you the grace to be able to get away from it. It is a present tense problem, but at the door is what I call a pernicious problem. That word pernicious means destructive. Some people play with temptation like it ain't no big thing, okay? Coffee and chocolate would tempt me, and we can laugh about it because chances are that's not going to destroy my life or destroy my health. Or could it? It could. Too much of a good thing, it becomes a vice, and that can be bad. Pastor Lee Eclob says, temptation and testing are interwoven. God never entices you to sin, but He certainly tests us. And every test, it may be an illness, it may be a difficult person, it just may be a frustrating situation. We've had plenty of those. That becomes the test of your character, of your faith, of your obedience. But with that testing, there's that temptation to react sinfully. That's the flesh. The Lord allows us to be tested / tempted so that we learn obedience. Cain's sinfulness was crouching at the door because it wanted to come into his life and take ownership. And it wanted not just to hurt Cain, it wanted to destroy Cain. And it practically did. Powerful destructive emotions that clouded his judgment due to his own sin nature, because remember, sin kills. I had another pet. I know time is waning, so I need to wrap this up quickly. I had another pet. When I was, yes, thank you, appreciate it. That is a Dalmatian. Now, that is not my dog, Sparky. I could not find a picture from 50 years ago, but that is the closest images I have found of what my dog looked like. I wanted a Dalmatian. I wanted a firehouse, fire truck, fire station dog. The white one with the black dots all over it. That was my dog. And so my grandmother Moore bought me one. I was spoiled, I'm sorry. And Brought it to the house. My mom was not happy with that situation, but what do? It was love at first sight. That dog loved me. We would play, would run all over the backyard. It was bigger than I was. I'd run up and push her and then take off running. She would chase me, and then she would grab me, yank me by the hair with her mouth. I would scream bloody murder. She'd throw me on the floor and have me held down. The maid comes running out, shoos the dog away, and I repeat it over and over and over again. Love that dog to death. But that dog loved to come inside, and 4 years old, going on 5, I thought, I can take care of the dog. So I had tried to feed the dog one time, and she ate the whole bag of Alpo, and that was a vet bill right there. So I thought, well, I'll learn my lessons. I left the dog in the house. I had shut the special sliding door in our kitchen so it could not get into the dining room or into the living room. And I'm like, I had a little bit of food. I learned that lesson. A little bit of food, had her water. She came in, took one look at me, almost as she had a smirk, and she bounded through that sliding special door like an accordion. Okay, I think we have one in that fellowship hall where some of the supply room is. It's just an accordion folding door. And she ran. I couldn't control her. She was out of my hands. And so Sparky, that was her name, she runs up the stairs, and then I hear the maid, her name was Lena, and she hollers loudly, "Oh, Lord." What I found out was, to my chagrin, the dog had bounded up the stairs, found her, because she loved everybody, if she wasn't aggressive, snatched the fresh sheets just taken off the line out of the maid's hand, had it in its mouth, and was running down the stairs with it. Lena caught the dog, got the sheets. It might have been a tooth hole in it or such. That was 50 years ago. I don't remember everything, almost everything, but not quite. She got the dog outside. Let's just say that when my family got home from work, we had a little discussion about that. Sometimes temptation is like that, is it not? We think we got control of it. We think, we can play with it. Oh, it's really not going to hurt it. And besides, God's grace, I can get forgiveness. So, hey, I can kind of do what I want. Wrong, no. It don't work that way. Temptation of sin is always destructive. It is just as my dog's nature was to be destructive, so is temptation and sin. It's nature to be destructive. You cannot play with it. As we wrap it up tonight, as we apply this, do you sense whatever tempts you tonight to sin is actually and acutely destructive to you? When you play with it, when you yield to it, it hurts you, it hurts others. You say, well, how does it hurt others? Well, Abel lay dead because of Cain's giving in to temptation. Do not let sin reign in your mortal body so that you obey its desires. Romans 6:12. There should be accountability. Find that person that you trust who hopefully is a little bit maybe more spiritually mature than you are, and be careful of what you share and how you share, but share with them maybe your struggle and ask them to pray for you over that temptation and to pray with you. And then act accordingly. The Bible gives us guidelines for living. It's not rocket science. So then live by the guidelines. Do what it says. Like Nike commercial. Just do it. He who seeks to get the victory over any sin must also consider its temptation to it and strike at that root. Without deliverance from this, he will not be healed. John Owen. But when you do face it, and you face it in the power and the grace of Jesus Christ, who's been there, done that, and because of His victory, you can have victory, then you grow spiritually. And you're able to help others. And as our worship leaders come, and as we stand and sing our hymn of invitation, you come tonight. If the Lord is telling you you need to put your trust in Him for the very first time, then let's nail it down tonight. Let's don't leave here with a question mark. Let's leave here boldly with an exclamation point that you are a child of God set free. Maybe somebody's dealing with temptation. Young, old makes no difference. We're all in the human race. We're all in the same boat. And maybe you just need to come and pray about that or share that, and we will pray with you and pray for you. You come as God leads you to come tonight. As we sing our hymn of invitation, you come.